Still in the general subversive area that we have been noting about how speech has become the fourth de rigueur of man's existence, along with the other three S's, which you know what they are. It's not the Three Stooges. Well, not in all cases. But how speech is now absolutely, without any question, being the overt reflection, if you want an easy way, of the intellect being activated in some cases. That speech is an absolute requirement to be alive, and then how it is that in speech is secondary world. Whether they call it this or not, that people, ordinary, reasonable, speaking, thinking people, are being driven to want to be more individually free, intellectually, creatively, and to be in some way more individualistic. Oftentimes known as being Christians, Jews, and Republicans, and famous, and rich, and better looking, thinner. It's all the same, if you see it. And yet, still the intro for anyone taking notes, and yet, while everyone's driven to do this by life, and that they are motivated to yearn for this kind of additional individuality, still, I think we're big boys and girls. We can go past similes. We can go into, dare we, allegories, metaphors, even symbolism. No, don't be excited yet. We'll do it gradually. At least anyone get the bends. That even though people are driven, just everyday, ordinary, sophisticated, reasonable, etc. People use deodorant, brush their teeth, and call their mama. They're dreaming, they're driven by life. It's only ordinary people that are driven by subconscious and conscious psychological motivations, remember. Everybody else that knows anything is driven by things we don't want to talk about. They're just driven by life. While they're driven to have this kind of yearning, under whatever name, such as to call out for Pavarotti, they will settle for John Denver. Or at least I insulted anyone again. They call for the wine list, and they will settle for grape soda. They call, bring me around, son, bring me around my Ferrari, and they bring up a beat-up Volkswagen Beetle, and people get right in and drive right off. So as always, another side stuff, I know we've covered this many, many times, but it is right at the heart of the way the nervous system is arranged in a polarized world, is that while people are driven to do one thing and then settle for another, you understand, if we were ordinary, God forbid, if we were just ordinary people saying this, what would you take this to be? You can listen with ordinary ears, you know what I'm going to say, surely. You'd think, well, you know, if you're a regular, routine smart-ass yourself, you'd go, that's right, boy, old damn crazy people, old pretentious, pushy people. People will say, well, it's the kind of people that got those bumper stickers on their Volkswagen that says, my Ferrari's in the garage. You know, yeah. And it's not. It's only the ordinary people out there in that same game that laugh at each other. Kyroots pointed out, it didn't get a big response tonight, but what else is new? That according to the myth in one land, when the chickens and the eggs get together, they laugh at corn. That'll teach corn. I hate to turn Kyroots into pablum, but notice, the chickens and the eggs can laugh at corn, but what if they really laugh at corn? What if they laugh at corn to the point that neither one of them any longer will even associate with it? That's known as the fifth big S. Suicidal. At any rate, laughing at your fellow man, if you're serious, if you believe that you're actually laughing, the finger does not say loans 3 flights up or circumcisions 1 flight down, and it does not say boom to you. What it is a man is laughing, that kind of ordinary cynicism, and while blowing the smoke out of your gun, you inadvertently. Of course, that is just metaphorically speaking. At any rate, I wanted you to notice again that all of this always sounds, if you're listening to ordinary ears, and I could make every warning, every caveat, every disclaimer in the world to begin with and say, everything that I'm going to attempt to say, I want you to understand is in no way critical of man. And somebody goes, oh, that sounds interesting, or all right, go on. You know, that's so much for the intro, what is it? And then as soon as you start talking, the ordinary mind, it's not everybody's fault, the ordinary mind, especially if I pick on enough people, it sounds like, they begin, oh boy, yeah, God, are people idiots or what? And you can't help it at the ordinary level, and that's not what it is. So we're back to where we were. The people are driven to say, may I see a listing of your best champagnes? And then no matter what they say, they'll bring them out some kind of knee-high soda. They still make it grape juice. And people will drink it. That is the way life is. And it's not stupidity, it is not lack of sophistication. It is part of the crudest descriptive level, kind of the friction energy that runs everything at the secondary level. So from that, moving on just a bit further, if you recall where we were sort of last time, is we're considering how the ordinary mind is satisfied, even inspired, by guesswork. Guesswork in that sense, consider guesswork to be, in my metaphor, to be grape juice, and then whatever would be non-guesswork, great knowledge, some kind of secret information, whatever you care to call it for the time being, would be non-grape juice. In other words, just real knowledge as opposed to guesswork. Let's don't play around, and you just take it totally all the way from metaphorical to symbolic. That the way things are arranged, the ordinary mind is inspired only by guesswork. That if there was something else available, and we're still dealing with the fact that everyone, whether they are mystically inclined or religiously inclined, still believe that there is something superior to what is the general knowledge collectively of humanity right now. Everyone believes that. If they're sane, they believe, anyone will tell you, the smartest, the man with the highest IQ in North Dakota will say, well, it may be true that, hell, I'm down near 100, but I could be better. Not in age, that was on the Sanford-Binet test. Little joke, but obviously not enough for you people here from that area of the country, or else none of you know what an IQ test is. If there was such a thing, as people believe, as some sort of real knowledge, you've got to see beforehand, taking life's own kind of polar-based reason and logic, that if there was such a thing, that it's less than people imagine it is, or it's stranger than people imagine it is, or it's more obscure than people think it is. Because of this, is the fact, is that if there is some sort of higher knowledge, and I don't mean just mystically, it can be that, but I don't know why you'd be interested in that kind of idea, but that old idea, all the way from that to just, they could be more scientific knowledge. We could be, as human beings, more intelligent, more reasonable, more logical. We could be that way. Everybody agrees to that. All right, if you agree to that, just by your own admission, do you see that something is funny? The WDNA at the secondary level, and the secondary frequency, is continually broadcasting, except what they're broadcasting, you just don't notice it, is always previews for tomorrow. Today's programming hardly exists. It's like that they will play a sketch of a record maybe once every hour for like 2 seconds. And then say, well, just a second. And then they keep giving you previews about tomorrow's what's coming up. The point being, people believe we could be more intelligent. They won't take it personally, but they might, I'm sure they would agree to this. If I say, all right, there's got to be more intelligence out there. There's got to be more information. It's not just a personalized thing with the actor himself. We're talking about the action. That there must be more information. And the more intelligent they are at the ordinary level, the more they would say, well, certainly. And that's what we should be after. I mean, that's what is lacking. That's why life is full of, and then fill in the blank, crime, stupidity, people uglier than I am, people dumber than I am, people who will run into my car, people who will let me run into their car. Whatever it is, the answer at the secondary level to any intelligent person, the answer has got to be, in some way, an expansion of the nervous system. That we have got to be more intelligent creatures. If that is so, how do you explain the fact that things are moving along quite smartly on grape juice? Or the way I put it to you, that the ordinary mind is inspired, is moved only by guesswork. That is what it is, and it's not an attack. But as opposed to people believing that there is some superior, some additional knowledge, and we are in desperate need. You know how that goes. The more you're intelligent in the ordinary sense, as the king pointed out in the Kyroots tonight. He didn't want his time wasted. The king being, you know what? He told the chief of staff, do not bring subjects before me that won't whine, or who won't whine. I'm sure the king wouldn't speak of his subjects in a non-personalized manner as though they were objects. Well, your mind wouldn't, would it? I don't know. It is a simple fact to realize that the octane, the kind of wine, the kind of automobile, the kind of music, pick it out somewhere between John Denver and Pavarotti and Ferraris and Andre. I was trying to think of a quality champagne with a brand with which I thought many of you might be familiar. Well, it's a step up from Kmart. Is that no matter what life makes people say, as it should, that yes, we have got to have better knowledge. We have got to be more educated. If we had better knowledge, if we knew more, we wouldn't have all of these problems. We wouldn't have crime. We wouldn't have poverty. We wouldn't have people with bad haircuts. But notice, it makes people say that, and it makes them absolutely believe it. That it is just an accepted operational definition of an intelligent person to get up and to whine. They may do it with one or two words that have multi-syllables, and they may have on a nice suit, and their introduction may be better, that this man is a graduate of Harvard instead of the University of Mississippi. But if he is going to be intelligent in whatever area, economics, ecology, politics, you know what he's going to say by now. I'm here to bring you the bad news. I thought you said this guy's an expert. Maybe he overheard it. He says, well, I can see the intelligence of this crowd is higher than I thought. All right, I'm here to bring you the terrible news. And then people go, well, now we get our money's worth. But it's on the basis, you understand. Nowadays, the more we're dealing with the ordinary secondary world, it's not to divide it up again for the sake of trying to see it into the primary. That if we're dealing with the sophisticated modern areas of the world, which are the only ones of any particular significance right now for what we're discussing, we're not talking about actual problems of poverty or starvation. If you're starving here in, wherever you're seeing this, in Los Angeles or Butte, Montana, if you're starving, you don't really have a physical problem. If you're starving in this country in this day and time, you definitely have a mental problem. You don't have enough sense to come in off the street. You don't have enough sense to go where they will give you something to eat. It is simply that we're not dealing with the 3 S's anymore. That you're not dealing with, I'm going to die today. I'm going to die because I cannot get sustenance. I'm going to starve to death here in the middle of downtown Pittsburgh. Or I'm going to freeze to death because of lack of shelter. Or I'm going to horny to death because of lack of sex. In the secondary world, you're dealing with the problems being at a secondary level. And so it always seems to be, even if a person, you didn't lose your place, did you? No, it's right there. Even if a man begins to whine and complain and shake a portending fist at our future over the problems of ecology, that we're destroying the environment, and he will start pointing out all the great, whatever the latest ones are, the dreaded greenhouse effect, or the hole in the ozone, whatever it is. And so it's obviously talking about physical things. But notice, what's the solution at an individual, at an intellectual level nowadays? The man says, friends, neighbors, fellow citizens, we have simply got to wise up. We've got to realize the folly of fouling our own nest, of destroying our own home environment. The solution, they say, is here. In other words, why? We would not be committing suicide, we would not be pouring these pollutants into our air if everyone understood that it was self-destroying. So you see, they're talking about, here is where the answers lie. That although it is, without a doubt, a material problem, if that is a problem. We're taking their word for it for a second. They're saying the problem is the poisons out here in the river. The pollution that we can see and measure out here in the atmosphere. So it's material. But what do they say the cause of the problem is? It's here. Because they're saying, well, everyone's intelligent enough here in our great country. If they simply had the information knowing that they should not turn out this kind of waste materials into the river and etc. So they're saying the problem actually comes about where? From here. That what we need is greater intelligence. There's no way out of that. There's not supposed to be. Except what I wanted you to try and see was, if that was certain knowledge, things would be different. It is guesswork. But then if you were ordinary, you'd say, well, wait a minute, you're saying that the people don't know anything. You're saying that experts are not experts. That's not it. What I'm trying to get you to see is that there is something other than what the human mind has already defined as knowledge. Remember the guy who's in charge of making up rhymes for things that didn't rhyme? Since that one got such a big response. And Kyroots pointed out, under other circumstances in a different place, I could be called someone's job description as being involved with progress. Except for this, if you're really good, you're supposed to ask yourself, how can you make up a rhyme for something that doesn't rhyme? That's when you become a multi-dimensional expert. The hogs run in fear. For one reason. Because pursuing them are always hungrier hogs. And the king slept soundly. Am I going to repeat every Kyroots that was read tonight? Trying to get through the intro here to bring us up to date. It is, in a form, what I mean by guesswork. What I'm trying to get you to see, the term's not important other than the fact that I was hoping to get your attention to start with, that even that which appears to be expertise, the information, the opinions, the theories of experts, the more it is expert theory, by ordinary definitions, the more it is guesswork. Because if there is such a thing as non-guesswork, to use my term, if there is something like certain knowledge, we don't have it. They don't have it. And they might say, well, you're right. That's why we're still working on it. But then if you tried to say, well, wait a minute, let's see if we could slow the film down and listen a second. Does that make you never thought about that? That you just yourself admitted that we do not have real information and we're working on it. And that that's what the problem is. You've never thought that and then simultaneously looked around and thought, it's not much of a problem here. Well, on the basis that are things devolving, regardless of that rock group from Akron, they devolve themselves out of existence. Are we not potato heads or who? In other words, the expert, I'm playing the game of trying to fool with somebody's nervous system in a way in which a polarized system could not respond. You just have to freeze up. But it would be, can't you hear yourself say that we do not have true information? We don't know exactly what we're doing in this field. It doesn't have to be ecology, it could be economics, political theory, political science, as they want to call it. Right? I mean, if meteorologists can call themselves weather forecasters, they can call their field political science. To try and get a system to realize that, all right, you're being driven to say, well, we have got to have some good champagne here, or we have got to have fuel of a higher octane. We have got to be able to run it up somewhere. 300 octane. Or for those of you that have other interests other than automobiles, we have got to be able to distill alcohol to the point of 200 proof. I am sick. We can never get by. We'll never get anywhere with simply 190 proof grain alcohol. All right, they're being driven to say that, and me try to ask the guy, this nervous system expert, all right, you're saying that what we need is more and more information. Certainly. The more I know, the more I realize we've got to know more, which is what part of an expert is. And then to say, all right, do you ever, just for a second, do you ever sort of come to your senses and realize that life is not going downhill? I mean, it's not even open to theory. That nobody but, somebody would make, what's that guy, Zipperhead or somebody in the comic? You would make Elmer Fudd. Who's the dumbest person we know? Don't raise your hand, don't volunteer. It's to ask somebody, doesn't it ever just strike you that in the midst of all this, you can't help it? Remember, it's not psychologically motivated. Of course, that would ruin my conversational expert already. But it never just strikes you to look around, and other the fact that you're going to die. I hate to bring it up, but other than that, can you, that notwithstanding, does it ever just strike you just every now and then like a bad dream or a moment that you look around and you realize that nobody but the world's greatest idiot, what else can you say, has any idea, I don't care how expert, what your credentials, but nobody but the world's greatest idiot can look upon life, feel their own nervous system, and believe that life is going downhill. And of course they can't, but you follow the point that somebody somewhere would go, geez, you're right. And to me, to put that together with the fact that what they're saying is we need more information, is they don't need more information. That won't do. If there was more information, it wouldn't do. What they want is additional guesswork. You've got to keep revising the song. The hogs won't run. There is no good voting for the kingdom unless there are hungrier hogs behind the ones running. It's a revision of the same song. Well, not the same song. It's a revision of guesswork. Well, we'll quote another Kyroot then. The two brothers, and one of them said, the problem with life is being alive doesn't come with instructions. And his sibling said, hey, he disagreed because he had the finger. He said, no. He said, the problem is being born, you get so many instructions that most people just get confused. Which, of course, those of you who are off the main track understands the same thing. It is only guesswork. The only thing that drives ordinary people, that is the ordinary mind, forget people individually, but the only thing that drives the nervous system is guesswork, as opposed to what they would want to call certain knowledge. That we're getting closer and closer and closer. Of course, nobody notices that. Closer and closer and closer. Well, let's see. Having 16 minutes left, now we can, that was the intro. I was to bring us back up to date. I've learned all this, if you notice, anybody's ever noticed, from the great station, WDNA. Like if you got 30 minutes to talk and somebody shows up or to sing a song, you spend at least, because you got to admit now, I'm a little more magnanimous than that station. Because I'll only use up half the time, like bringing us up to date, which is a variation of, we interrupt this record just a second, we'll be right back with the show, but let us tell you what's on tomorrow's show. And you listen. Your nervous system been listening as long as you've been alive. I know some people think, that's me in there. They think that, except when push comes to the corner. That is, push comes to shove, and then people go, I want a psychiatrist, I want a second opinion. I didn't mean to do that. All right, you can't hold me responsible. I'm crazy. But the old joke was, he didn't engage in self-diagnosis, which some plumbers will do. But But he actually sought professional help, and they talked to him and said, "You're crazy." And he wasn't all that thrilled, and he said, "I'd like a second opinion." And the guy said, "Well, you're ugly too." I hate it. We should stick to serious matters. At any rate, now we're up to date. If you recall, speaking of the guesswork and etc., do you recall from a few nights back, there was another Kyroot wherein an old man stood up and addressed the family at the dinner table and pointed out that the only thing that you actually know, the only thing you really know, is stuff you made up. Now, information, stuff. But information, ideas, but information, what we're talking about, that you made up, surprisingly and insanely enough, to give ordinary people their due, the stuff you made up would actually be, singularly be approaching an area of true individual thinking and creativity. And I'll save you the problem. A man's mind right down here said, that cannot be. Then allow me to suggest that you ask yourself. How else can you be original except by being original? One more. The guy tonight pointed out, the station master, obviously with some experience, pointed out, you cannot get to Beirut without going to Beirut. See, because that is again part of the just ordinary, quite normal, healthy limitations of a polarized nervous system in a three-dimensional Mediterranean country system. Is that people will dream of real knowledge. Life makes you talk about it, life makes you talk, and even imagine as though you can almost see yourself behind the wheel of a Ferrari. Notwithstanding the fact that for 80 years you have been driving a beat-up, if not a Volkswagen Beetle, a slant-engine Plymouth from the 60s. The way the polarized system is arranged is that surely you're not going to strangle that kind of metaphor. I just hate to be that more specific about it, is people do dream of being somewhere without going there. Which is the difference, again, if you can see it, between guesswork and what would be non-guesswork. The difference between calling for champagne and then not noticing that you spent your whole life with no problem. No problem, you got to remember. Spent your whole life sipping on grape juice. And you're just as healthy as a goddamn wharf rat in slop. You're living longer than your father and your rabbi and your priest. Oh, sure, I know you're complaining and threatening to kill yourself. But you're just as healthy as you can be vis-a-vis the preceding generation. How else can you be original? How else could you be creative without being creative? Now, I admit the guy's mind, and his mind spoke for a lot, so that can't be. You know, this is nuttier than ever. It would probably said, hey, you did all right when you doing that parenthetical about surprisingly and insanely enough. Ha ha. But if you could deal in information that you, and we will go ahead and put in quotation marks, won't we? All right. Information that you made up. Now, we're past the point of ordinary guesswork, that is, out there with the ordinary mind, and even ordinary information, if they want to call it that. Forget all of that. Go somewhere past that to an area that the old man told his family about, that the only thing you really know, and I assume that you understand, that was not your run-of-the-mill, that was not the Cleaver family around the corner. But the old man told him the only thing that you people really know is stuff you made up. Now, as insane as that is, if you have got some glimpse or you at least partially put a down payment and bought the story that no matter what it's called, that what people are being driven, the urge and the itch is to intellectually, and I tried to give you a wide corral there of possibilities to look at it, is you are intellectually trying to be freer. Most people like to hear that. Yes, I want to be free. They want to be more creative. They want to be more individualistic, as witnessed by fashions and fads and everything else. Fame, fortune, it all fits within that. That's what they're trying to do. Even when it appears to be blatantly physical, the one that we hit in passing a while back, that if a person, man or woman, but if man is physically out there working in a gym trying to get like this, and do all this stuff, and you can say, well, that's as physical as it can be. That had nothing to do with the nervous system and being creative intellectually, when it is, because if he did not have intellectual ideas of a greater amount of freedom, more power here, he wouldn't do this. A man is not out building his body. A woman is not out trying to undergo hypnosis or with a vacuum pump trying to get... It's not simple on the basis of this, I want to be big and strong. Well, why? So I can go around and whip everyone. So that I will not starve. So when I get hungry, I'll simply walk up to a man with a hamburger and grab it. Not hardly in this day and time, Lou Ferrigno. Were it not for this attempting to do something, it is this that is making a man go do that. I'm not saying right or wrong, it's a hobby, it's no worse than anything else. But the man is not out trying to get his biceps up to 17 inches for that. If it were not for this, for the urge I'm talking about, if it was not for this thing trying to grow, trying to expand, trying to be freer, trying to be creative, he would not be doing this. He would not be trying to lose weight. There is simply no way out. If you are civilized, and you're civilized at least enough to fit into this discussion, if you're civilized enough to talk and to have a TV set and to be seeing this, then whatever you do, it certainly can't be divorced from the physical side of life. There'd be no purpose. That'd be suicidal. But you are not, even if it appears to be this plain and blatantly physical and materialistic, that I want to get big muscles. You may be, physically doing that, but were it not for this driving it, this is calling for champagne, and in a sense you're saying, well, I don't have Dom Perignon, but I got biceps the size of your thighs. Pencil head. It has to be driven by this. Now back to the insanely enough. Beyond what ordinary people call knowledge, and we're saying vis-a-vis, if you get it, even their own definition of knowledge, that everything that they're dealing with is non-knowledge, guesswork. It's certainly functional, to say the least. It's more functional than they imagine, because they keep saying, well, the knowledge we do have is insufficient. It's why we're all going down the tubes. Right. But beyond that level, what else would it be? If there is no certain absolute knowledge, or some kind of mystical knowledge, or people are not going to be uniformly thrown down by some great spirit and great secrets, verbal secrets given them of the universe, of physics. If it's not that, then what would it be? And I was making you the suggestion, taken from that Kyroot, that if there is something to be known, and you're not ordinary, because you're ordinary, you already know enough already. That as per that kind of old man in the Kyroots, that if there is something to really be known, the only thing that you're ever really going to know is stuff you made up. It's not guesswork. Well, that's obvious. And it's not even ordinary knowledge, which ordinary people say we have an incomplete supply of. That the experts will say, expert nervous systems, intellectual nervous systems say, well, I do not agree with your definition of what we know is guesswork. I'll agree to this, that our knowledge is incomplete, which of course gives you some credentials for being a potential poster boy for Mr. Intelligence. To say, well, I don't know it all. We don't know it all. But then if they were confronted with the idea that anything you can know, anything that you might really know, or let's put it another way, that you told somebody, did you know a guy that said that the only thing that anybody really knows is stuff they made up? Now, if you told an intelligent person that, and they say, am I supposed to take that seriously? And you say, well, yeah. You know, I walked all the way across the street and went in, combed my hair, and I went in to see a guy, and that's what he said. And so I'm asking, what's your response? Are you serious? He said that, yeah. Well, you know what their response would be. Well, if you think he was serious, he was either putting you on, or you're just dealing with some kind of madman. That's nuts. That probably doesn't qualify for nuts. It's silly. But then again, ask yourself, if the itch is to be creative, which it is, that your nervous system, you got no choice. I hate to say this. But hell, your glands and your hormones know it. Why shouldn't your brain know it? I don't know why. I don't know. Remember, a little cement fort around your brain, just for self-defense. How could you be original? How could you cease? How could you abandon? How could you avoid being a copy of something unless you were actually original? Which is verbally self-evident, but then go a little bit and say, well, how can you be original? Because usually what passes for originality in life is what? Denunciation of what someone else thinks. Which is how every generation is smarter intellectually than the previous one. Yes, our forefathers, this last generation, a bunch of idiots. Of course, you got to be part of the idiot crowd to say, well, in what way? You don't have to know in what way. All you got to know is whichever way the ticker tape was running in some area, whoever's telling you this, whatever it was running, they're going, huh. Now, if they're really expert, they may try to shade it a little bit, but all they're going to do is run the record backwards and assume they're going to get some kind of secret information off of a Black Sabbath album or something. In other words, everything they knew, let me be a little more subtle right quick. Each generation, look in your own nervous system, of course. Remember, we're not talking about this kind of fight going on out there externally between generations. It's in here. Well, of course, it's out there to ordinary people. But if that's all you're going to see, you're not going to live over about 60 years, and it's going to seem like, Jesus, it's going to seem like damn near 60 years. But anybody else, you got to understand your own nervous system is trying. Your own nervous system has got the potential. If you got the potential here and this, your own nervous system has got the hungrier hogs already in it. That's why you're running. That's why they're running. Except you can't run fast enough in one life collectively. You just kind of go. So internally, you got to be able to do it. But an ordinary person would say, we know more now. Our generation is better. We got better haircuts, better clothes. We know how to dress. And if you said, well, I was going to say you'd be part of the idiot syndrome if you had to say, well, wait a minute. Now I see what you're saying, and you pull yourself together. You're the new generation, at least metaphorically, and you show your haircut, show the new style, maybe give a few ideas about your latest new major theoretical breakthrough in the world of economics, philosophy. You would be part of the idiot scene itself if you had to go, wait a minute, that sounds all right, but I'm interested, what did the previous generation think? Are you that hard up for a hobby? Are you that dumb? All you got to do is take whatever you sing and turn it, run it backwards. That is originality. Listen, I'm nobody's fool. You think I believe this crap you people are saying? I am an original. I am creative. You didn't like that? You liked it too much. You wondered what happened? How do you know you're an artist? How did an expressionist know he was an expressionist until he went over and pissed on an impressionistic painting? How did a Picasso know he was a Picasso until he finally looked at Brock and went, you know, God, are you getting old? All right, Matisse. How did Mozart get to be Mozart? He finally looked around, he said to himself and thought, Jesus, Papa Haydn is really getting old. I got to do more. We got to get into baseball and Boog Powell. Or worse yet, how did Goethe know he was Goethe? He went, because I'm German, that's why. Which is a different story altogether. We have 0 time, so I guess that's a good place to leave it. It's how it can you be, as insane as it is. For the benefit of those who think it's insane, we'll leave it there and you feel like, well, I won again. That is, you did. But how else can you be original without being original? Don't be a kid. Don't say, well, whatever everybody else believes, I won't believe. Boy, there's no pulling the wool over your eyes. No sirree, because you'll settle for Orline.